The Sports Source is brought to you by Fast Frame, with exciting Vol sports prints now available.
You are watching East Tennessee's first and only year-round sports talk show on television. This is The Sports Source with your host, John Pennington.
Good Sunday morning. Welcome into the Sports Source. The Vols have reached 3-0 just as we expected, but not as we expected. They are 3-0. It's not looked the 3-0 that I think people thought they would be seeing at this point. It's Florida week. We're going to look at today's show as sort of a preview of that. From what we've seen these first 3 weeks, what are the best opportunities for Tennessee against Florida in the week ahead coming up on Saturday? Let's get right into it because we have a jam-packed show. First segment brought to you by Tennova Healthcare. And coming up, I want to tell you something. Coming up on Tuesday, September 27th, Tuesday the 27th at Jefferson Memorial Hospital, Tennova is going to be holding a free seminar to discuss the latest treatment options for joint pain. So many people live with joint pain, and you don't have to live with it anymore. For more information, call 1-855-TENOVA, 1-855-TENOVA. Kick joint pain to the curb with Tennova. All right, want to welcome in our panel for the first wave today for the first segment. We have Bob Hodge, we have VFL Will Overstreet, we have Jimmy Himes, and we have a very brave young man down there, VFL Kyler Kerbyson, who was on the line. He's the only guy that was missing from last year's line. Graduated, and all I can say is, were you really that good? Wow, you were one of the best ever. All right, we'll be talking later. An entire segment with Kyler about the offensive line and what he's seen and what could be some of the issues, so stick around for that. I want to start off, though. Vols outlasted Ohio 28-19. It was an ugly win. Before the season, most of the media projected a 10-2 record and an East title, barring catastrophic injuries. That term was kicked around. Let me show you the injury list for Tennessee, if we've got that. Do we have it? There it is. Offensive lineman Chance Hall's been out for a while with a knee injury. Questions about whether he could return this week against Florida. Linebacker Darren Kirkland, as we know, high ankle sprain, could be out for a while. Cornerback Justin Martin was out yesterday with an ankle sprain. Got a little asterisk there because he's expected to return against Florida. Probably more of a precautionary thing yesterday. Linebacker Jalen Reeves-Maben, the most important player on the team. I said before the season that his shoulder is the most important body part they had, and they got it hurt on punt coverage. He's expected to play against Florida. At least they're hopeful. Linebacker Cortez Sapp injured yesterday as well. Looked like a knee. And cornerback Cam Sutton, ankle, foot. There are reports of a broken bone. Always sad to see a guy turn down pro dollars, come back, get hurt. That's a lot of guys. My question very quickly, I'll start with you, Bob. Everybody can jump in here. Does that qualify as catastrophic?
I'm going to go catastrophic on that just simply because of the number and some of the names you have up there. Kirkland, Reeves-Maben, who hopefully he'll come back. But, I mean, Sutton, yes, I think you have reached catastrophic at this point.
When can you lose 3 potential All-SEC players and not call it catastrophic on your defense, especially, right. Especially at one position, that linebacker? Not to mention that your backup linebacker, Cortez Sapp, is hurt as well. So at the position that we identified early on in the year, that you had the least amount of depth and you should have the least amount of problems or you'd be in trouble, you've hurt 3 of those positions. That's a big problem. The next one is your All-American, all preseason, all everything, cornerback and punt returner is now out. So yes, catastrophic.
Guys, catastrophic?
I would agree with that, and you could add Josh Smith and LaTroy Lewis to that too.
Yeah, I should have. That's exactly right. There's 2 that should be on there.
And that's 7 starters or guys that have started. Yeah, that's pretty significant right there. And I don't know exactly how long some will be out, but I think Tennessee has already shown the effects of it, and it could be even worse against Florida, depending on who's back and who's not. But you pointed out the linebacker situation. They were short there anyway, and Reeves-Maben gets hurt. That's a huge issue, and with all due respect to Ohio, Florida will do a better job of taking advantage of that with isolated matchups than the Bobcats did.
And they also have a whole week to prepare for those holes being there. Kyler Kerbyson, is that a catastrophic situation?
I definitely think it hurts this team a lot, especially the 2 linebackers in the middle being the leaders of the defense. Kirkland was really stepping up as a sophomore to come in and be the leader of that defense when Jalen Reeves-Maben was going to leave. So losing those 2 guys is huge. Losing Cam is big too, but if I know anything about them, they're going to do everything they can to come back. They'll rub some dirt on it, wrap that thing up, and they'll come back as if they can. I mean, it's Florida week. You do anything you can to come back. And another thing about Jalen Reeves-Maben playing punt, you got to put your best guys out there. That's what happens. Last year when we played Alabama, Derrick Henry was on their starting punt team. And he's
Alabama's got more depth behind
All-American running back, and they have more depth behind him. 80% of their team is 4 and 5 stars.
Yep.
So why was he out there? Because they got to put their best guys out there every snap.
We did this with the VF in our overtime segment 3 weeks ago after the Appy State game. Will and I took the stance that don't care about any of that. This is your most important guy, and you've got nothing behind it. Yep. Protect that shoulder at all costs. I get the idea of putting your best guys out there. I do. But that's the one exception to the rule. If you got my best player on defense and he's got a bum shoulder to start, I don't have him out there. All right, let me ask you this, though. Catastrophic or not, I don't think fans are going to care. I think you can forget the excuses. We might have gone into it and said, look, if this happens, don't count on 10-2. Nobody wants to hear that. Nobody's going to hear that. Never happened. Blah. So, 3-0, 9-game winning streak. Only 2 teams, Alabama, San Diego State, have longer winning streaks, and yet there were boos at Neyland Stadium yesterday. Jimmy, your radio show today took some nasty calls on there, some people upset. Anybody surprised by the reaction to a 3-0 start and a 9-game winning streak?
Excuse me, can I go with...
Sounds like you are.
Yeah, can I go with the surprise reaction? Because I am surprised at the depth of the anger that people are over the way Tennessee has played to this point. I think, yes, it's been very disappointing, but last night after the game, I was sitting there taking phone calls from friends who are pretty level-headed fans, and Butch Jones can't do it. This coaching staff has to go. And I think in today's world that maybe when you turn these corners, it's hard to come back. So, yes, I'm surprised at the depth of the anger, not the surface anger, but this seems like it's going well through to people who are smart.
We've talked about it before. It's like it's like the doomsday clock. Once you start the clock, it's ticking. There's no stopping the clock. So you never want to get them to where they're saying this kind of stuff.
Yes.
But in this day and age, it doesn't take long to get them there. Any other guys surprised by the reaction?
Yeah, the booing and stuff like that. Usually that doesn't come until you've started losing a game or two before that really starts happening. So I'm a little bit surprised at that because you usually have your fans that are always going to be disappointed a little bit at this point in time, but usually more of them are not in the booing stage until you lose.
I think a lot of it is the angst about Florida. Is this team playing good enough against Appy State? Would that beat Florida? Would Virginia Tech performance beat Florida? Would the performance yesterday against Ohio beat Florida?
Can I answer those? No.
And that's why you have this kind of angst. I was surprised at this. The start of the second half. Now, they announced over 100,000. They were close. The start of the second half, I looked out in the stands and I thought, man, there are a whole lot of people getting hot dogs. They didn't come back. I bet you there weren't 60,000 at the start of the second half. That surprised me.
Kyler, how much you were on this team last year? How much and there were some growling last year after some of those fourth quarter leads that were blown. How much does this coaching staff and this team, how much do they have their ears up and hear that stuff? Some guys reacting with social media nitwits last night, some players barking back at these guys, an argument you can't win. How much do they hear this stuff?
It's definitely there. It's hard to ignore all of the stuff that people say to you, and they're very negative about a lot of things. And you think, would that help the team if you were being negative towards them? No, it wouldn't. So try and be positive. I'm going to say Tennessee's going to beat Florida every day of the week because I want them to, and I believe in them. And that's what's going to make them successful is if they have people backing them the whole time. It was 3 short years ago, we went 5-7. And people forget that. People think that we're supposed to go 15-0 and win a national championship right away. Just remember where we came from and what Butch Jones and his staff and these players have done to get back to where we are now.
Fair enough. I think part of the problem was that some of us in the media got carried away too, though. And I'll talk about this later. There were people saying top 5 talent, playoff talent. We'll show you some talent numbers later on that you'll want to stick around and see. ESPN Game Day, in case you haven't heard, they're coming to Knoxville next week. Great. That always worked well when they come to Knoxville for the Tennessee-Florida game. When we come back, we're going to talk about the linebacker situation a little bit more. We'll talk about the defensive backs. What do you do with the injuries going up against Florida? Come on back on the Sports Source.